Hey, friends, welcome back to this lesson again in module 5 of how to track your progress and adjust things so you can keep making progress. Now it's the big meat of the lesson, which is basically how to assess your progress. Basically, you need to know how to recognize your plateaus and then how to fix them. So, evaluating your journey is very important in this whole process. Here are some ways, first of all, you can actually implement and start off the tracking process. Okay, before I go into the plateaus component and adjustments. The first thing is you want to do regular check-ins. Now you can set them weekly or monthly assessments. Me personally, I prefer weekly assessments. If you were to coach with us in our programs, we will definitely give you weekly assessments so that we can move and adjust things in a more timely manner. So have regular check-ins so that you can keep staying on top of things. Now, the other thing is you want to use multiple metrics. As I mentioned, don't rely solely on the scale. Okay, the scale is an important metric, yes, but you also need to check your measurements, your actual quantitative measurements, check your performance in your exercise, and check some of the qualitative measures as well. Especially when you're just starting out, I would recommend rate your energy levels every day and just kind of see how you feel. Um, the third thing here to kind of implement this is to keep a journal. So you actually have to record this down. Now, even though I say it's a journal, it could be on an Excel sheet. You could be using, you could be doing pen and paper if you're old school. You could do an Excel sheet, whatever it is, as long as you have a way to track things reasonably, where you can record your workouts, your food, your sleep, even your feelings, right? A little entry and notes on how you felt in that day. All these will be very useful notes to look back on when you are doing your check-ins with yourself, right? And your assessments to figure out, okay, what's the stuff that's causing the plateau, if there's a plateau, and how to quickly preemptively fix things if we are already spotting certain things that might present potential issues in the future. The last thing here is you want to then start comparing over time. Okay, so we're not looking at any one single data point. Example, we're not going to look at just the scale weight on this one day and say, oh no, I gained 1 kilo from yesterday. It means that my plan's not working, I need to make an immediate change. No, we're never ever going to do that. Okay, instead, you want to look at the trend because these things will fluctuate from day to day. Okay, on a daily perspective, fluctuations are absolutely normal, and sometimes they can be, very weird. They can move in directions that you don't expect. But if you're doing everything correctly, if you're ticking all the boxes with your plan, then chances are over time, over a 7-day average, over a 14-day average, over 2 weeks, you'll be able to see that the trend is moving in the right direction. So look at the trend rather than one-time results. So now you know how to implement it. Let's take a look at plateaus. How do you actually recognize a plateau and make sure that you are not preemptively changing things when things don't have to be changed? Because sometimes, if you only look at one metric, for example, if you only look at weight, it's not uncommon, especially in a weight loss journey, to see the weight remain unchanged or just floating around that same range, even though you might still be losing fat, your waist might be going down, your clothes might be fitting differently. So here's how you recognize a plateau. A plateau is when your metrics actually remain unchanged for a sustained period of time. And generally, this means all the measures that you've chosen are not progressing for 2 weeks or more. So as I gave you in just that example earlier, if your weight is remaining the same, but your waist is going down, your clothes are fitting better, your energy levels are going up, then you know you're actually still making progress. So one measure alone does not dictate the entire decision-making process. You have to put it all together. So you're in a plateau when you see things are not moving in all of the measures, or at least 90% of the measures, they're all not moving. Okay, then potentially you are either reaching a plateau or you're already in a plateau. Okay, and a plateau obviously is when you're not making any progress. So here are some clear signs to look out for, as I mentioned. You're observing consistent measurements the same over several weeks. You see that there's a lack of performance improvements. You see that there's a plateau in your body composition changes despite your best efforts. You take your progress pictures and they look virtually the same. All of these things together will indicate that yes, you're probably not making any progress or you're stuck at the current plateau. Okay, so as I mentioned, a combination versus a single factor. So what can cause a plateau sometimes? And it's important to understand this in order to go through the adjustment matrix that I will be going through in the next couple slides. When we know what causes the plateau, that will inform us on how we're going to make our adjustments. And usually plateaus are caused by only a few things, right? It's either the adaptation of your body, meaning your body, whatever you did to your body in the changes that you made, your body is slowly adapting to these changes. This is a good thing because if your body's not adapting to it, it is indicative that something's probably wrong with your internal metabolism and your signaling system in the body, because your body is supposed to be a very resilient and a survival machine, that's able to withstand drastic changes in the environment, drastic changes being done to them. That's how we have survived for so long as human beings. Okay, so the adaptation of your body is a very normal thing. But obviously, we need to know that in the case of trying to change the body, when that's happening and how do we actually overcome it. The other things that can cause plateaus potentially is your overtraining, okay? Because poor recovery can actually stall your progress. In fact, it can actually lead to regression. You might find that your training might be going down. You might find that your weight sometimes might even be going up slightly, things like this, okay? The other things that can cause plateaus are a lack of, sleep, and also very, very high levels of stress, as we have covered in the previous module. So poor sleep and high stress can hinder recovery as well. And here's the big deal. Here's the main and most important thing, not big deal, but here's the main and most important thing. It is likely a combination of all these factors that will be causing a plateau. So with that in mind, and knowing what causes plateaus, here, like, how do you know when and how to make adjustments? First of all, you want to evaluate and identify which areas have actually stalled. Is it more of an adaptation issue, or is it more of a recovery issue? Because if it's an adaptation issue, then fair enough, we have to make a bigger change to kind of push your body into the new direction that it doesn't want to go in. But if it's a recovery issue, we probably shouldn't make a change to the adaptation side of things. First, we should actually try to fix what is the lack of recovery that's going on. And so you can easily see this quick decision-making matrix here. It's a little hierarchy where you have at the top here, you have the plateau, right? So you have the plateau occurs, you have identified that, yeah, all my metrics are not moving. I am in a stall. So is it an adaptation issue or a recovery issue? Okay. Am I currently, getting all my recovery in? Am I really doing my best for my recovery? Okay. If you're already doing that, it's likely an adaptation issue. Then you can go down to make the changes needed, where you can say, are my activity levels currently, at do they have room for me to push them up? So example, if you're only doing 6,000 steps or 7,000 steps, okay, cool. You might have some area to push, and you can say, maybe instead of 7,000 steps, I can go to 9,000 steps. I can bump it up, right? So you can increase your deficit through that range, or you can also increase your deficit through a calorie adjustment. You can say, okay, right now I'm eating 1,800 calories. Maybe I will take away 200 calories from there. So I'm going to eat 1,007. So you can play around with it. It doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. It really depends on your situation. Let's say if 2,000 steps seems like too much to add, you might do 1,000 steps and you might only drop your calories by 100, for example. So you can play around, mix and match a little bit. But let's say if the plateau occurs and you realize that, hey, you know what, my recovery is just not the best. Then if you try to make an adaptation change here, what you're likely going to do is you're going to cause even more stress to your body. You're going to you're going to overstress your recovery even further, because now you already have a lack of recovery at the current levels of stress that your changes that you're making. And so any further changes is just going to make it even harder for you to recover from. So usually you would have to solve the recovery side of the equation first. And so the recovery side would be, are you overtraining, or do you have a sleep or stress issue? Now, these two are kind of correlated, because to some degree, if you are having sleep and stress issues, you probably are not able to recover from your training very well. So if you find that maybe you're doing like way too much volume, and you're already doing the best with your sleep and your stress, maybe just reducing the training might be the push that you need to kind of like fix this gap. Okay. But more often than not, in all the people that I've trained, I would say a large portion of the time is they're just not getting enough sleep, or they're not managing their stress very well. So look at one or the other, and then try to adjust from there. As always, revisit the module previously on sleep and stress in order for us to kind of go into like much further details on how to do so there. Okay, so that's the matrix. Here are some very practical tips, okay, when you're making adjustments. The first one is you want to make manageable adjustments. You're not going to completely overhaul everything and say, I'm going to make like a super big change, because more often than not, that's usually going to backfire. Okay, unless you are very, very, very far along in your journey, you're like very, very lean already and you are trying to get even leaner, yeah, maybe you might need to make like much more aggressive adjustments. But even then also, it's not going to last very long. Okay, so make manageable adjustments. Just do the most amount of change that you can do, you can manage to get kind of the response that you want. The other thing is you want to monitor the effects of your adjustments. Okay, you're not going to do one adjustment and then immediately change it, over the next few days. You usually want to monitor it for at least 2 to 4 weeks before you make further adjustments. You need to give it time to show up to see whether or not these adjustments actually have any impact. Yeah, so it takes time. The other thing you can do, and obviously this is a very important one as well, is basically to seek support because a lot of times when we are trying to do things ourselves, we are not often the most objective individuals to do so. And even for us as coaches, we also have coaches because we need somebody to be that objective third eye. Okay, it's hard to kind of go outside of yourself to look at yourself. So you can consider either a coach or at the very least an accountability partner, somebody that you trust that hopefully is a subject matter expert that can help guide you in the changes that you need to make. Because at the end of the day, it's one thing to just get somebody to be accountable to, but it's another thing to actually have somebody in your corner that knows what is the situation you're facing and on a technical perspective, how do you actually modify things. So that's honestly a really important one, I would say. And that's where the meat of everybody's experience with coaching really lies. It's in the adjustments and the progress and making sure that people are not getting distracted or making weird adjustments that maybe burn out their progress even faster. And the last part to this, I would say, is a bit more of a mental mindset thing, which is you want to manage your expectations as well. Okay, first thing is a lot of people fear plateaus, but plateaus are part of the journey. Your body will adapt. And as I mentioned, it's a good thing because it means your body is healthy, it's resilient, and it's good. You just need to stay calm and make the adjustments that you need. You also need to be very patient because sometimes the adjustments might take a while to show up. But that's where the trust in the process comes in. And again, sometimes if you're trying to do this alone, it's very hard to trust the process because you might not have had very good success before that, right? And confidence before that. So it's good to seek the help of somebody you trust, preferably a coach that you have talked to and you feel can be the one to help you. So those are the practical tips. In summary, look, you have to track your progress. It's essential for success. It gives you some self-accountability. It also helps with the motivation, small little wins along the way. As I mentioned, you have to use a variety of metrics to assess your progress accurately. You also want to recognize that plateaus are normal, identify them, and you can make the targeted adjustments. And remember this last thing, small, consistent changes will lead to continuous success. So all the best with this, and we will see you in the next module.